My wife spent 8 years lying to my face, and I spent 3 months making sure she'd regret every second of it. My name is Nicholas Harrison, and I'm 34 years old. I'm a software engineer in Seattle, pulling in six figures, and for most of my adult life, I thought I was building something real: a marriage, a partnership, a future. Then I discovered the truth. Liza married me for a green card, nothing more. While I was working 60-hour weeks to build our life, she was draining our bank account, $73,000, and sending it to Arvin Yang, her boyfriend back in the Philippines. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. My jaw clenched, and something cold settled in my chest, a quiet, calculated fury that wouldn't let me rest until justice was served. I made sure Liza lost her citizenship, got deported, and left with nothing but a lifetime ban from ever returning. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. Tuesday afternoon, around 2 p.m., I walked into our apartment with my jacket slung over one shoulder, still riding the high from work. My company had just closed a massive contract, 6 months of negotiation finally paying off, and they'd sent everyone home early to celebrate. I was thinking about surprising Liza, maybe taking her out to that Thai place she liked, maybe opening the good bottle of wine we'd been saving. The living room was dim, curtains half drawn against the afternoon sun. Liza sat on the couch, laptop balanced on her knees, leaning forward toward the screen with this smile I hadn't seen in months. Soft, unguarded, happy. Then she saw me. Her head snapped up, eyes going wide. She slammed the laptop shut so fast it made a sharp crack that echoed through the apartment. But I'd already seen him. Some guy, shirtless, grinning at the camera like he owned the world. My stomach dropped. The jacket slid off my shoulder and hit the floor. "Who is that?" I asked. My voice came out harder than I meant it to. Liza stood up, clutching the laptop against her chest. "Just a friend from back home, Nicholas." "Why are you interrogating me?" "Friend?" I stepped closer, watching her body language, the defensive stance, the way her eyes darted toward the bedroom like she was calculating escape routes. "Funny how your friend is half naked in the middle of the afternoon. What time is it in the Philippines right now? Like 4 in the morning?" She crossed her arms, laptop still pressed tight. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" I moved closer. She backed up half a step. "Because it looked pretty intimate for 4 in the morning with some random friend." "You're home early," she said, deflecting. "You never come home this early." "We got a half day. Closed a big contract." The words felt meaningless now, hollow. "But that's not what we're talking about, is it?" I reached for the laptop. She twisted away. "Nicholas, stop. Give it to me." I wasn't asking anymore. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" I grabbed the laptop from her hands. She tried to hold on, but I was stronger, and desperation makes people sloppy. She let go with a frustrated sound, stepping back. I opened it. The video chat application was still on screen. Call ended, but the history right there. Hundreds of calls. I scrolled. 3 calls yesterday, 2 the day before, 5 last week, going back months. My chest tightened. I clicked on the most recent conversation thread. The messages loaded. "I miss you so much, baby. Can't wait to feel you again. Just need to stay another year or two. Then I can divorce him and keep half of everything. He has no idea. Stupid Americans are so easy. Tell me again how much you love me, Arvin. I need to hear it after dealing with him all day." Arvin. His name was Arvin. I looked up at her. She was standing by the window now, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the floor. "How long?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. "How long, Liza?" "Does it matter?" Her voice was flat. "Yeah." I set the laptop down on the coffee table, carefully, like if I moved too fast, something inside me would break loose. "It matters. Because I need to know, did you ever love me? Or was I just a meal ticket with a social security number?" She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And she laughed. Actually laughed. "Love?" She shook her head, smiling like I'd just told the world's stupidest joke. "Nicholas, grow up. I needed citizenship. You were convenient. You were lonely enough to believe a pretty girl from Manila actually wanted to spend her life in your boring apartment, listening to you talk about coding and craft beer and all your boring dreams. The rage that hit me was white hot, instant, flooding every vein. My hands curled into fists at my sides. But I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I smiled instead. cold and sharp. "His name's Arvin, right?" I asked. "Arvin Jang?" Her face went pale. "What are you—" "I can read, Liza. The guy on the screen. That's him, isn't it?" She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. I'd seen enough. I stood there in the middle of our apartment, my apartment, and let the rage settle into something colder, something sharper. You know what's funny? I'd been tracking our finances obsessively for the past month. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every suspicious transfer. I knew exactly what she'd done before I even walked through that door today. $73,000, I said. She looked up. "What? That's how much you've stolen from me. $73,000 transferred to Arvin Yang over the past 2 years. Wire transfers, PayPal, Western Union. You really diversified your theft methods, Liza. I'll give you credit for that." Her mouth opened, closed. Our savings account? Drained. The emergency fund I built up over 5 years? Gone. The money I'd been setting aside for a down payment on a house, the house I thought we'd buy together, that's sitting in Arvin's bank account right now, isn't it? "You can't prove anything," she said, but her voice wavered. I stepped closer. She didn't back up this time. She was frozen. "I don't need to prove anything to you," I said quietly. "But I'll damn sure prove it to Immigration and Customs Enforcement." That got her attention. The color drained from her face completely. "You wouldn't." "Wouldn't I?" I tilted my head. "You committed immigration fraud, Liza. You married me under false pretenses to obtain citizenship. That's a federal crime, punishable by denaturalization, deportation, and a permanent bar from re-entry to the United States." "We're married," she said quickly. "They won't believe? We were married." I pulled my phone from my pocket, scrolled to a contact. Past tense. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm attaching every piece of evidence I have to a formal complaint with ICE. The chat logs, the financial records, everything. She stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. "I've already consulted with a lawyer," I continued. "Immigration attorney named Roseanne Whitlock. She specializes in fraud cases. You know what she told me when I showed her the evidence? She said, with this kind of documentation, you're done." Liza's hands started shaking. "Please, Nicholas, please." "Please what?" "I'll pay you back." The words came out in a rush. "I'll end things with Arvin. I'll do whatever you want. Just, please don't do this." I laughed, cold, humorless. "You'll do nothing. Except pack your things and get out of my apartment. You've got 2 hours. This is my home." "No." I walked to the door, opened it. "This was never your home. This was a layover, a convenient pit stop on your way to stealing everything you could from some idiot who actually loved you." She stood there, frozen in the middle of the room. Tears started streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were panic. Pure, desperate panic. "Get out, Liza, before I decide 2 hours is too generous." "You're making a mistake," she said, voice cracking. "I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer and—" "Fight all you want." I held the door open wider. "You're going back to Manila, and when you get there, you can explain to Arvin why his cash flow just dried up." She grabbed her purse from the counter, hands trembling so badly she almost dropped it twice. She walked toward the door, stopped right in front of me. "I did care about you," she whispered. "In my own way." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw nothing but a stranger wearing a familiar face. "No, Liza, you didn't." My voice dropped to something dangerous. "But I'm going to make sure you remember me for the rest of your life. Every time you're stuck back in the Philippines, unable to return to the country you scammed your way into, you'll think of me. That's my gift to you." She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else. Then she just walked out. I closed the door behind her, locked it. The apartment was silent. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, listening to my own breathing, feeling my heart pound against my ribs. Then I pulled out my phone and called Roseanne Whitlock. She answered on the second ring. "Nicholas, everything okay?" "She's gone," I said. "Let's move forward with everything." 2 days after Liza walked out, I sat at my dining table surrounded by printouts, bank statements, and a laptop open to spreadsheet after spreadsheet. I'd taken Thursday off work, told my boss I had a family emergency, which wasn't exactly a lie, and spent the entire day organizing everything. Every wire transfer, every PayPal transaction, every Western Union receipt. I cross-referenced dates with our joint account activity, highlighted the amounts, and built a timeline that showed exactly when the bleeding started. 3 years ago. the month after Liza became a U.S. citizen. She'd waited just long enough to make it look legitimate. Then she'd started draining me dry. My phone rang around 2 in the afternoon. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Harrison?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. "This is Clara Nguyen from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We've received your complaint and reviewed the preliminary evidence you submitted." My pulse quickened. "And? I need you to come in for a formal interview. Can you make it to our Seattle office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.? I'll be there. Bring everything you have," she said. "Financial records, communication logs, photographs, anything that supports your claim." "I've got it all." "Good." She paused. "Mr. Harrison, I want to be clear. We take marriage fraud very seriously. If your allegations are substantiated, we will pursue this case fully." I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Satisfaction, maybe, or just the certainty that I was finally doing something instead of being a victim. "Thank you," I said. She hung up. The ICE office was a gray, institutional building in downtown Seattle. I arrived 15 minutes early, carrying a leather messenger bag stuffed with every piece of evidence I'd compiled. Clara Nguyen turned out to be a woman in her late 30s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense. She led me into a small interview room, gestured to a chair, and sat across from me with a legal pad. "Let's start from the beginning," she said. "When did you first suspect your wife had married you under false pretenses?" I walked her through everything. The video call I'd interrupted, the chat logs I'd found, the financial records showing $73,000 transferred to Arvin Yang over 2 years. I handed her printed bank statements with highlighted entries, screenshots of messages where Liza called me stupid and easy to manipulate, a timeline I'd built showing that the transfers started within weeks of Liza obtaining citizenship. Clara flipped through the documents slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she looked up. "This is extensive," she said, "and damning. So you'll pursue it?" "We will." She made a note on her legal pad. "I'll need to conduct additional interviews and verify some of this information independently, but based on what you've shown me, Mr. Harrison, I believe you have a credible case." I exhaled. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. "What happens next?" I asked. "We'll open a formal investigation, contact Ms. Cruz Harrison for her statement, review immigration records from her original application. If the evidence holds up, we'll refer the case for prosecution." "How long does that take?" "Depends on her cooperation." Clara closed the folder. "But you've done your part. Let us handle it from here." I left the building feeling lighter than I had in days. Justice wasn't just possible. It was coming. That evening I was making dinner when my phone buzzed. Email notification from Roseanne Whitlock. Subject: "We have a problem." I opened it. "Nicholas, Liza just hired Stephen McGraw. He filed an emergency motion this afternoon claiming you're weaponizing immigration law out of spite. Says you two are in a legitimate marriage going through normal difficulties, and you're retaliating because she wants a divorce. Judge Valerie Anderson scheduled a hearing for 3 weeks from now. Call me immediately." My stomach dropped. I dialed Roseanne. She picked up before the first ring finished. "Did you read the motion?" she asked. "Just your email. Who the hell is Stephen McGraw?" "Deportation defense attorney. One of the best in the Pacific Northwest. He's successfully defended clients in cases almost identical to yours." "How is that possible? I have proof." "He doesn't need to disprove your evidence, Nicholas. He just needs to create reasonable doubt. Make it look like a marriage that went bad, not fraud from the start." She paused. "And he's very, very good at that." I sat down hard on the couch. "So, what do? We build an airtight case. We gather every possible piece of evidence, not just financial records and chat logs, but witness testimony, documented lies, anything that proves intent from the beginning. I'll do whatever it takes." "Good." Her voice hardened. "Because McGraw's going to paint you as a controlling, vindictive husband. He'll make Liza look like a victim. We need to be ready to destroy that narrative completely." I looked at the email again. 3 weeks. "Then let's get to work," I said. The next morning, I met Roseanne at her office, a sleek suite on the 20th floor of a downtown tower with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. She had files spread across the conference table when I arrived. "Sit," she said, not looking up. "We have 3 weeks to build a case that Stephen McGraw can't dismantle." I sat. "What do we need?" "Everything." She looked at me then, her expression hard. "McGraw's going to argue this was a real marriage that fell apart. We need to prove it was fraud from day one. That means documentation, Witnesses, timelines, anything that shows intent. I have the financial records, the chat logs. Not enough, she cut me off. McGraw will claim those are taken out of context, that the money was gifts to family, that the messages were venting during a rough patch. She tapped a legal pad. We need independent corroboration. People who can testify that Liza admitted the fraud. Digital forensics showing premeditation. Federal documents proving she was actively deceiving you. I leaned forward. Tell me what to do. First, we subpoena 3 years of bank records, joint and individual. I want every transaction documented and cross-referenced with dates. Second, we hire a forensic digital analyst to recover anything Liza deleted from her laptop. She wiped it before she left, I said. Roseanne smiled thinly. Deleted doesn't mean gone. I know a guy, Todd Sanders. He's recovered data from drives that were practically destroyed. If there's anything on that laptop, he'll find it. Done. What else? Witnesses. Anyone who knew Liza, who might have heard her say something incriminating. Friends, colleagues, anyone. I thought about it. Most of Liza's friends were nursing colleagues, and they'd probably side with her. But then I remembered Diane Roberts, another nurse Liza used to hang out with until they had some falling out last year. There's someone, I said. Diane Roberts. She and Liza were close for a while, but they stopped talking. I don't know why. Find out, Roseanne said, and see if she'll talk to us. 1 week before the hearing, Todd Sanders turned out to be a lanky guy in his early 30s who worked out of a cluttered office that smelled like coffee and electronics. I dropped off Liza's laptop 3 days earlier, and he'd called me that morning to come review what he'd found. He had the laptop open when I arrived, connected to a second monitor displaying rows of recovered files. Your wife's pretty bad at covering her tracks, Todd said, scrolling through a directory. She deleted the messages, but she didn't scrub the drive. I pulled everything. He clicked on a folder, and message threads appeared. Conversations between Liza and Arvin spanning 2 years. I read them, my jaw tightening. Just need to stay another year or two, babe. Then I divorce him, and I can claim half of everything. U.S. law is so stupid. He has to give me money even though I'm leaving him. He still doesn't suspect anything? LOL, you're so good at this. I know. Honestly, it's almost too easy. Americans are so trusting. Todd clicked to another folder. She also did a lot of internet searches right after getting citizenship. Look. Browser history entries appeared on the screen. Washington State Divorce Asset Division. How long do you have to be married to get alimony? Can husband hide assets during divorce? The dates were all within 3 weeks of Liza's citizenship being approved. She was planning this from the start, I said quietly. Yeah, Todd said. And I can testify to all of it. Chain of custody, recovery methods, timestamps, everything admissible in court. I looked at him. Thank you, he shrugged. Just doing my job. But for what it's worth, she screwed you over bad. Glad you're fighting back. 5 days before the hearing, Roseanne tracked down Diane Roberts, and I met both of them at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill. Diane was a professional-looking woman in her early 30s, dressed in scrubs like she'd just come from a shift. She looked uncomfortable. I don't want to get involved in this, she said as soon as I sat down. I understand, Roseanne said gently, but we need the truth, and we believe you know something that could help. Diane looked at me, then back at Roseanne. Liza and I used to be friends. We went through nursing school together. But she changed after she got her citizenship. Started bragging about stuff that made me sick. What kind of stuff? Roseanne asked. Diane hesitated. We were out for drinks about 2 years ago. She'd had a few, and she started talking about Nicholas, about how she'd married him just to get papers. She said it outright. I married for papers, not love. She laughed about it. Said she was just waiting long enough so the divorce wouldn't look suspicious. My hands clenched under the table. Will you testify to that? Roseanne asked. Diane looked conflicted. If I do, people are going to hate me. Liza's got friends at the hospital. Liza committed fraud, I said, my voice hard. She lied to federal agents. She stole from me. And if she gets away with it, she'll do it to someone else. Diane met my eyes. After a long moment, she nodded. Okay, I'll testify. The night before the hearing, I sat at my kitchen table, reviewing the filings Stephen McGraw had submitted that afternoon. He was good. Damn good. He'd gathered declarations from 3 of Liza's colleagues, nurses who said we seemed happy whenever they saw us together. Wedding photos showing us smiling, vacation pictures from a trip to Vancouver 2 years ago. A statement from Liza's mother describing how lovingly Liza talked about me during phone calls home. McGraw's narrative was clear. I was a controlling, vindictive husband who couldn't handle rejection. Liza was a victim trying to escape, and I was weaponizing the law to destroy her. I felt anger rising, but I pushed it down. McGraw was good, but I had the truth. I had the financial records, the recovered messages, Diane's testimony. The visa application Roseanne had uncovered. Liza had tried to bring Arvin to the U.S. 6 months ago, listing him as family friend and forging my signature as sponsor. The visa had been denied, but the application existed. Federal evidence. I closed the file and looked out the window at the Seattle skyline. Tomorrow, we'd walk into that courtroom, and I'd make sure everyone saw exactly who Liza really was. Morning of the hearing. The federal building in downtown Seattle looked like every other government structure. Gray concrete, security checkpoints, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look half dead. Roseanne and I met outside at 8:30. She carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my laptop. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. "Let's end this." We went through security, rode the elevator to the 4th floor, and walked into courtroom 4B. Judge Valerie Anderson was already on the bench, a stern-looking woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that gave nothing away. She watched everyone who entered like she was cataloging them. Liza sat at the defense table beside Stephen McGraw. I almost didn't recognize her. She wore a conservative navy dress, flat shoes, and glasses I'd never seen her wear once during our marriage. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun. She looked like someone's Sunday school teacher. The whole thing was theater, a costume designed to make her look innocent and sympathetic. McGraw himself looked polished, expensive suit, perfectly styled gray hair, the kind of confident posture that said he'd won cases like this before. Roseanne and I took our seats at the opposite table. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was coiled tight. Judge Anderson called the hearing to order. McGraw stood. "Your Honor, this is a case of a vindictive ex-husband weaponizing his privilege and this court's time to punish a woman for having the audacity to leave him. Nicholas Harrison can't handle rejection, so he's trying to destroy Ms. Cruz Harrison's life through immigration law." He paced slowly, his voice smooth and practiced. "Marital difficulties are normal, Your Honor. People fall out of love. People grow apart. That doesn't constitute fraud. My client married Mr. Harrison in good faith, tried to make it work, and eventually realized the relationship was untenable. What we're seeing here is retaliation, pure and simple." McGraw called Liza to the stand. She walked up slowly, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue before she even sat down. The oath was administered. Liza placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. "Ms. Cruz Harrison," McGraw began gently, "can you tell the court about your marriage to Nicholas Harrison?" Liza's voice trembled. "I loved him. I really did. When we met, I thought I'd found someone I could build a life with. I tried so hard to make it work. What happened? He became controlling, jealous. He questioned everything I did, who I talked to, where I went. When I finally stood up for myself and told him I needed space, he turned into this." She paused, tears streaming down her face. "This monster." I felt Roseanne's hand briefly touch my arm, a silent reminder to stay calm. "And your relationship with Arvin Jang?" McGraw asked. "Arvin is a friend from back home," Liza said. "Just a friend. Nicholas twisted it into something it wasn't because he couldn't accept that I had any life outside of him." McGraw nodded sympathetically. "Thank you. No further questions." Judge Anderson looked at Roseanne. "Cross-examination?" Roseanne stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Ms. Cruz Harrison," Roseanne said, her voice calm but sharp. "You testified that you loved Mr. Harrison. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And yet you transferred $73,000 of his money to Arvin Jang over the course of 2 years. Can you explain that?" Liza hesitated. I was helping him with family expenses." "Family expenses?" Roseanne pulled out a document. "These are the bank records, Your Honor. Wire transfers, PayPal, Western Union, $73,000. Dates and amounts are all listed here." She handed the records to the judge, then turned back to Liza. "You also exchanged thousands of messages with Mr. Jang during your marriage. Would you like to hear some of them?" Liza's face went pale. Roseanne played an audio file. Todd Sanders had converted the recovered text messages into spoken excerpts. Liza's voice came through the speakers. He's so pathetic. Doesn't even realize what's happening. Arvin's response. You're good at this, babe. Liza again. I know. Americans are so easy to manipulate. The courtroom was silent. Roseanne turned off the audio. Still just a friend, Ms. Cruz Harrison? Liza didn't answer. Roseanne called Diane Roberts next. Diane took the stand, looking nervous but determined. Ms. Roberts, Roseanne said. How do you know the defendant? We went to nursing school together. We were friends for a while. Can you tell the court about a conversation you had with her approximately 2 years ago? Diane nodded. We were out for drinks. Liza had a few and she started talking about Nicholas. She said, verbatim, I'm married for papers, not love. She laughed about it. Said she was just waiting long enough so the divorce wouldn't look suspicious. Judge Anderson's expression tightened slightly. Next came Todd Sanders. He explained the forensic recovery process in clear, technical language, then presented the browser searches Liza had conducted within weeks of getting citizenship. Washington State Divorce Asset Division. How long married to get alimony? He also showed the recovered messages where Liza told Arvin she planned to stay married another year or two before divorcing and claiming half of everything. Finally, Roseanne presented the visa application. Your Honor, this is a visa application submitted 6 months ago for Arvin Yang to visit the United States. It lists Mr. Harrison's address and includes his signature as sponsor. She handed it to Judge Anderson. Mr. Harrison never signed this document, Your Honor. His signature was forged. Ms. Cruz Harrison submitted a fraudulent federal immigration application. Judge Anderson examined the form closely. Her expression, which had been stern but neutral, shifted to something stone cold. She looked up at Liza. Ms. Cruz Harrison, the judge said quietly, does your attorney have an explanation for this? McGraw stood, his confident courtroom demeanor cracking at the edges. Your Honor, I would need to consult with my client regarding the specifics of— Mr. McGraw, Judge Anderson interrupted, her voice cutting through his deflection like steel. I'm not asking for consultation. I'm asking for an explanation. Your client submitted a fraudulent federal immigration document with a forged signature. Does she have an explanation, or do you? McGraw glanced at Liza. She sat frozen, eyes down, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Your Honor, McGraw tried again, there may have been a misunderstanding regarding— A misunderstanding? Judge Anderson's tone sharpened. This is a federal form with Mr. Harrison's signature forged on it. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. Silence filled the courtroom. McGraw had nothing. Liza stayed silent. Judge Anderson turned her attention to me. Mr. Harrison, she said, you've presented compelling evidence of fraud. I want to hear directly from you. What outcome do you seek from this proceeding? I stood. My hands were steady. My voice was clear. Your Honor, I want justice. My wife lied to me for 8 years. She lied to federal agents during her immigration interviews. She married me under false pretenses solely to obtain citizenship. That's fraud, federal fraud. She stole $73,000 from me to fund a life with another man. She forged my signature on immigration documents. She committed crimes, Your Honor, and she needs to face the consequences. I paused, meeting Judge Anderson's eyes. I want her citizenship revoked. I want her deported. And I want a permanent bar on re-entry to the United States. She doesn't deserve to be in this country. Judge Anderson nodded slowly, her expression unreadable but thoughtful. I'll issue my ruling within 1 week, she said. This hearing is adjourned. That week felt like it lasted a year. Liza started calling me within hours of the hearing ending. I blocked her number. She called from different numbers, friends' phones, maybe burner phones. I blocked those too. She showed up at my apartment building 3 days after the hearing. I was coming home from work when I saw her in the lobby, waiting near the elevators. The moment she spotted me, she rushed forward. Nicholas, please, we need to— I turned to the security guard. She doesn't live here anymore. I need her removed. The guard escorted her out while she shouted promises. She'd pay everything back. She'd end things with Arvin. She'd do whatever I wanted. I walked into the elevator and pressed the button for my floor. She sent messages through mutual acquaintances. A nursing colleague I barely knew called me, saying Liza was desperate and just wanted to talk. I hung up. Another friend texted, "She's begging you to drop this. She says she'll make it right." I didn't respond. Every attempt Liza made to reach me, I ignored. There was nothing left to say. She'd made her choices. Now she could live with the consequences. 1 week after the hearing, Roseanne called. Judge Anderson issued her ruling, she said. We won. I sat down, gripping the phone. Tell me. Judge Anderson found that Liza committed marriage fraud. She's revoking her citizenship, ordering removal from the United States, and imposing a lifetime ban on re-entry. I closed my eyes. We won. Completely, Roseanne said. ICE will take her into custody tomorrow. Deportation is scheduled for the following week. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. 2 days before Liza's scheduled deportation, my phone rang. Roseanne's voice sounded tight. We have a problem. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Stephen McGraw filed an emergency appeal. He found a technicality, some administrative error in Liza's original green card filing. He's arguing it undermines the entire case. That's insane. The fraud is proven. I know, Roseanne said. But the appellate judge stayed the deportation pending review. Liza's being released from ICE detention. I stood up, my hands shaking with rage. You're telling me she's getting out? Temporarily, until the appeal is decided. How long? Could be weeks, could be months. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. After everything, after the evidence, after the hearing, after the judge's ruling, Liza was still going to slip away on some goddamn technicality? No, I said. No, I'm not letting this happen. Nicholas, find me another angle, Roseanne. There has to be something we can do. She was quiet for a moment. Let me think. I'll call you back. I hung up and stared out the window. Liza was out there somewhere, probably celebrating, thinking she'd beaten me. She hadn't. This wasn't over. The morning after learning about the stay, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. The apartment felt too quiet. I kept replaying Roseanne's words. Could be weeks, could be months. No. If the courts were going to drag their feet, I'd make sure Liza had nothing left to fight for, and nothing to come back to, even if McGraw's technicality somehow worked. I picked up my phone and called Gerald Clarkson, my divorce attorney. He answered on the second ring. Nicholas, what can I do for you? I need you to accelerate everything, I said. I want the divorce finalized before the appellate court rules on this immigration appeal. Gerald paused. That's aggressive, but doable if she doesn't contest. She won't contest, not if we make the right offer. What kind of offer? I leaned forward. Nothing. No alimony, no asset split, nothing. But tell her if she signs immediately, within 48 hours, I won't pursue criminal charges for the forged visa application. That's a bluff, Gerald said. The feds will pursue that on their own if they want. Liza doesn't know that. Gerald was quiet for a moment. Then I heard him exhale. You want to corner her. I want her to understand she has one chance to walk away without criminal prosecution hanging over her head. She signs, or I make her life even worse than it already is. I'll draft the papers today, Gerald said. But Nicholas, this is scorched earth. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. 48 hours later, Gerald called. She signed. I closed my eyes. Everything? Everything. No alimony, no asset claims, no contested property. The divorce is finalized. You're free. Free. I'd been married to Liza for 8 years, and it took 48 hours to erase her completely. Thank you, Gerald. Nicholas, one more thing. She looked terrified when she signed. I've seen a lot of people in bad situations, but she was shaking. Good. She should be terrified, I said. She committed fraud. She stole from me, and now she's paying for it. The next day, I filed a civil lawsuit against Liza for theft and fraud. I was seeking recovery of the full $73,000 plus damages for emotional distress and legal fees. Stephen McGraw tried to fight it. He filed a motion to dismiss, arguing I was harassing his client and using the legal system as a weapon. The civil judge, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Huang, read through McGraw's motion, then read through my evidence. She ruled in my favor within a week. I was granted a judgment lien against any assets Liza had. Of course, Liza had nothing. She'd sent everything to Arvin. But that gave me an idea. I hired a private investigator in the Philippines, a guy named Albert Romero, who specialized in tracking down financial fraud across international borders. I'd found him through a recommendation from Todd Sanders, the forensic analyst. Albert called me 2 days after I sent him the case details. I found your guy, Albert said. Arvin Zhang, lives in Quezon City, works as a marketing consultant, drives a brand new sedan, recently put a down payment on a condo. He's been living well off your money. Can you serve him with a demand letter? Absolutely. What do you want it to say? Simple. Return every dollar Liza sent him, or I report him to Philippine authorities for receiving stolen funds. I'll also notify U.S. immigration that he was complicit in marriage fraud and attempted to enter the country illegally using forged documents. Albert chuckled. That'll get his attention. Make sure it does. 1 week later, Albert called again. You're not going to believe this, he said. Arvin folded like a cheap suit. He wired $31,000 to your account this morning. I sat up. 31? Not the full 73? That's all he has left. He spent the rest on the car and the condo down payment. Guy's panicking, kept saying he didn't know it was stolen, that Liza told him it was her savings. He's lying. Of course he's lying, but he paid what he could. You want me to push for more? I thought about it. No, 31,000 is enough. It sends the message. There's one more thing, Albert said. Arvin cut off all contact with Liza. Blocked her number, blocked her social media, told mutual friends he wants nothing to do with her. Apparently, she's been calling him non-stop since she found out he returned the money to you instead of helping her. I smiled. Liza's relationship with Arvin, the whole reason she'd destroyed our marriage, was gone. He'd chosen self-preservation over her, just like she'd chosen money over me. Good, I said. Let her know what it feels like to be abandoned. The appellate court issued its decision on a Tuesday morning. Roseanne called me at work. Nicholas, it's done. The appellate judges rejected McGraw's motion. They found the administrative error insufficient to undermine the overwhelming evidence of fraud. Judge Anderson's ruling stands in full. I leaned back in my chair. Citizenship revoked? Yes. Deportation ordered. Lifetime ban confirmed. ICE is moving to execute immediately. I closed my eyes and let that sink in. Thank you, Roseanne. You earned this, Nicholas. She committed crimes. Now she's facing the consequences. 3 weeks later, I was home on a Saturday afternoon when I saw the van. Federal vehicle, white with government plates. It pulled up to the motel across the street, the same cheap place Liza had been staying since the hearing. I moved to my window and watched. 2 ICE agents stepped out. One was a woman in her 40s, the other a younger guy, both wearing tactical vests with badges visible. They walked into the motel. 5 minutes later, they came out with Liza between them. She was in handcuffs. She wore the same conservative dress she'd worn to court, but now it looked wrinkled and defeated. Her hair was pulled back messily, and even from a distance I could see her face was red from crying. She looked up at my building as they guided her toward the van. For a second I thought she saw me. I didn't move, didn't hide, just stood there and watched. The agents loaded her into the back of the van. The door closed. The van pulled away. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no guilt, not even satisfaction. Just cold certainty that justice had been served. Liza was transported to a detention facility in Tacoma. She was processed for removal, fingerprinted again, photographed, her deportation order officially logged into federal records. Within 4 days, she was on a flight back to Manila. The divorce was finalized. I had my civil judgment. I'd recovered $31,000 of the stolen funds, and Liza was permanently barred from ever returning to the United States. She was gone, completely, utterly gone. A month later, I got a message from someone unexpected, a mutual acquaintance named Helen Portman who'd worked with Liza at the hospital years ago. Helen had stayed in touch with some of Liza's friends back in the Philippines. Helen called me out of the blue. Nicholas, I thought you should know what's happening with Liza. I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. What about her? She's living with her parents in Manila. She's working double shifts at a local hospital, making a fraction of what she made here. Her nursing credentials didn't transfer the way she thought they would. She had to retake exams, and even then, she's only been able to get lower-level positions. Good, I said flatly. Helen hesitated. There's more. She's drowning in debt. Stephen McGraw's legal fees wiped out what little she had left. She borrowed money from family to pay part of it, but she's still underwater. And Arvin wants nothing to do with her. He's dating someone else now, completely cut Liza off. I leaned against my kitchen counter, processing that. Liza was trapped, stuck in the exact life she'd tried to escape 8 years ago when she married me. Only now she had the added weight of shame, debt, and a deportation record that would follow her forever. She tried to play me, I said quietly. She thought I was weak, that I'd just accept being used and move on. I know, Helen said. I'm not defending her, Nicholas. I thought you'd want to know she's not doing well. She's doing exactly as well as she deserves." Helen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're right. What she did to you was unforgivable." "Yeah, it was." After we hung up, I stood there in my apartment. My apartment, not ours, and looked around. Clean, quiet, mine. Liza had tried to take everything from me, my money, my trust, my future. Instead, she lost everything: her citizenship, her career, her relationship with Arvin, her freedom. And I was still here, stronger than before. 6 months after Liza's deportation, I stood in my new living room and realized I was happy. Actually happy. Not pretending, not going through the motions, genuinely content with my life. The house was a 3-bedroom Craftsman in Ballard, nothing extravagant but solid. Good bones, updated kitchen, a backyard big enough for a grill and a couple of chairs. I'd used the $31,000 Arvin had returned as part of the down payment, the same money Liza had stolen from our original house fund. Felt right, using it for what I'd always intended. I didn't feel guilty about what happened to Liza, not even a little. She made her choices. She committed fraud, stole from me, lied to federal agents, and destroyed what could have been a real marriage. Every consequence she faced, deportation, debt, losing Arvin, being stuck back in Manila, she earned. Justice doesn't require remorse. I met Juliet Parker 4 months after Liza left. My buddy Marcus Dunlap threw a barbecue at his place in Fremont. I almost didn't go. I'd been avoiding social stuff during the legal battle. But Marcus insisted, "You've been a ghost for months, man. Come drink a beer and eat something that isn't takeout." So I went. Juliet was there, talking with Marcus's wife by the grill. She taught 3rd grade at a school in Greenwood. Dark hair, warm smile, the kind of person who actually listened when you talked instead of just waiting for her turn to speak. We got introduced, started talking about nothing important, neighborhood stuff, the Mariners' terrible season, whether the new taco place on Market Street was worth the hype. It felt easy, natural. No games, no manipulation, no hidden agenda. Just 2 people having a conversation. A week later, I asked her to coffee. She said yes. 3 months after that, we were dating seriously. Juliet knew about Liza. I didn't hide it. Told her the whole story one night over dinner at her apartment. The fraud, the theft, the deportation. She listened quietly, then said, "I'm sorry that happened to you, but it sounds like you handled it exactly right. You don't think I was too harsh?" "Harsh?" She shook her head. "She committed a crime. Multiple crimes. You made sure she faced consequences. That's not harsh. That's justice." I liked her even more after that. Work got better too. 2 months after the deportation, my boss, a guy named Roger Castellano, called me into his office. I thought I was in trouble. I'd been distracted during the legal mess, missing deadlines, showing up late. Instead, Roger offered me a promotion. Senior developer, leading a new project team. 20% raise, better benefits, more autonomy. "You've been through hell this year," Roger said, "but you handled it. Didn't fall apart, didn't let it destroy you. That takes strength. I want people like that leading teams." I accepted. Funny how life improves when you're not carrying the weight of someone else's betrayal. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the marriage. Grabbed drinks with Marcus and a couple of other guys from college, Trevor Montoya and Sam Briggs, people I hadn't seen regularly in years. We met at a brewery in Capitol Hill, and within 10 minutes, it felt like no time had passed. "So you actually got her deported?" Trevor asked, half impressed, half shocked. "Yeah, she committed immigration fraud. The system did the rest." "Damn," Sam raised his glass. "To consequences." We drank to that. Later, Trevor asked if I ever regretted it. "Not for a second," I said. She had every opportunity to build a real life with me. Stable marriage, good income, citizenship. She threw it all away because she thought she could use me and get away with it. "She underestimated you," Marcus said. "She did, and now she's paying for it." Sometimes people ask why I'm not married anymore. I don't sugarcoat it. I tell them my ex-wife married me for citizenship, stole $73,000, sent it to her boyfriend in the Philippines, and got deported when I reported her to federal authorities. The reactions vary. Some people are shocked, some are sympathetic. A few think I went too far. I don't care what they think. It's a cautionary tale about trust, about consequences, about what happens when you underestimate someone. Liza thought I was weak, thought I'd just accept being used and move on quietly. She was wrong. Now, standing in my living room with Juliet beside me, she'd brought over takeout, and we were planning to watch some documentary she'd been recommending. I thought about how completely my life had transformed. Liza was stuck in Manila, working double shifts, drowning in debt, abandoned by Arvin, permanently banned from returning to the country she'd scammed her way into. I was here, in a house I owned, with a woman who actually cared about me, a promotion, friends, a future that belonged to me. If you've ever been used, betrayed, or treated like you were disposable, listen carefully. Don't just get angry. Get even. Get smart. Make sure the person who wronged you remembers what happens when they cross the wrong person. Liza will spend the rest of her life knowing she could have had everything and lost it all because she thought I was too weak to fight back. She was wrong. I won. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.